Welcome in to the North Florida Prep Report here on the I-10 Sports Media Network. I'm Andrew Jupe, going to bring you the action here today. We're talking playoff pictures. That's right, getting into the bubble teams, who's locked up the district, matchups that would happen today if the playoffs started this week. Of course, so much to get into, a lot of excitement. Let's see what's happening from our area teams from Walton to Suwannee County here on the playoff picture edition of the North Florida Prep Report. Let's go. All right, so let's get into it. Like we said, we're going to get into the playoff picture and go through the recent numbers of what's happening here in our area. So let's start with rural. We'll work our way up from 5A. Once again, our coverage area, that Walton to Suwannee little situation here in North Florida. Of course, that's who we got going on here, starting in rural, which a lot of our area teams are in the mix for. So as we look at the chart, of course, we'll get to this and then get to the bracket here in just a second for rural. Not many changes towards the top. So you can see Union County, Hawthorne, and Madison, kind of your 1, 2, 3 that we've seen for a while. Jumping up is Pahokee into the 4. There's some movement there. But as we focused on some of our area teams, ones to watch, here, you got to look at Osceola Chipley, both of our teams there. Osceola still strong, holding that undefeated record, which I think is important for them if they want to hold on to that home field game like they want to. I think they have to go perfect 10-0 and beat Franklin County here this weekend. If the playoffs started today, they would be playing Chipley in that 8-9 matchup. Going down forward, Lafayette really making some headway here. They're kind of cementing themselves in that 12 situation here today, so looking good for them. Bluntstown also making some moves at 11, and then of course Holmes County, it looks like they're slipping down to 14 here, so they're kind of in that bubble watch. We do have a couple of our area teams that get into the bubble watch. You also think about Franklin County's into the mix, and then on the other side, as we flip out of what would be our A bracket, of course some of our other area teams. But if it started today, Lafayette would be at Chiefland here as we get going forward here, but while we stick at the numbers, we'll stick to the charts. So a team falling out of the rankings this week was Jefferson County after a tough loss. They're now 6-3 here on the season. Hamilton, of course, on the outside looking in if things started today. Port St. Joe is creeping back into the picture, so don't look now, but the Tiger Sharks really making a run at this. Here, Sneed's down towards the bottom. And, of course, Weewahitchka, Liberty County down there as well. These teams on the bottom half looking like solid B bracket teams. But you flip up towards the top. Jefferson County is one team. Port St. Joe is another team. Of course, with a couple of our out-of-area teams with an opportunity to flip-flop back into this bracket. So, of course, the B bracket won't be the official state champions, though they will have a tournament of their own that week, so they will play out a bracket starting the 15th of November, just like everybody else here in the state. But let's get into the matchups here of what would be in the A bracket. So, of course, Rural Ball, to be clear, is taking 16 teams. Currently in the bylaws, it talks about taking 20. That is not the case. That has changed with the FHSAA press conference. If you want to see that, we'll have that listed in the description below to announce the kickback due to the hurricanes, the weather, all that good stuff. So that has been affected. It's only the top 16 with a chance at the cup, the trophy, down at the Villages here in Rural Ball. So look at the matchups. You got Union County, Bradford. Of course, one of our area teams, Madison, would host Holmes County. That will be a fun one over in Madison. Of course, the 8-9 matchup, Osceola Chipley, would be hosted in Monticello. Going on down, Lafayette will be at Chiefland in that 5-12. In the 6-11 game, you'd have Jay hosting our Bluntstown Tigers with a big win this past week. Of course, down in the 7-10, Cottondale still holding on to that undefeated mark. Will think they have to go the distance in order to maintain their hosting seed. I think with the strength of schedule, the state is not liking them in the metrics, so they'll have to run the table in order to keep the hosting. Otherwise, I think they're vulnerable to get jumped like a team at 9, like a Chipley, or another team in kind of that 10, 11 spot, maybe Fort White, maybe Bluntstown. If Bluntstown finishes strong, they would also be a candidate. Game to watch on that extra Thursday, Bluntstown, Port St. Joe. That could be an opportunity for Port St. Joe to hop into the A bracket. Also on the other side, could be an opportunity for Blountstown to potentially jump into a hosting situation where they host a first-round playoff game. But they, if you kind of projected it, you feel pretty good about them going forward. So then towards the bottom, Cottondale, Fort White, Hawthorne, Franklin County still holding on. A little bit of a rough stretch for Franklin. They've lost 3 of 4. They go to an undefeated Osceola this weekend. The margin of error is very, very slim here for Franklin County. Of course, just about less than 1.5 points separating them and Fort Meade, the other area team here that's kind of going forward for them. So it's going to be tough for them to hold on, though they do have an advantage with a lot of these teams. Fort Meade currently at the 17, so you think would be the at-risk team or the team to chase Franklin down potentially. Keep an eye on Brantford. They got a big win this weekend. They're currently 16, but I think the teams to watch are Baker, which is actually a seed lower, and then Port St. Joe, which is a seed under that. Those are the 2 teams I would be worried about if I was Franklin County potentially to get jumped. But if they go out to Osceola, I would assume a victory against Osceola would give them a big jump because of the undefeated. The strength of schedule would go up. You could see Franklin with a win back into like an 11 or maybe even a 12 situation here and be flirting with a host depending how that last week goes. But Thursday game with Osceola and Franklin, so we'll know going into the Fridays where are these teams and what they have going on. So I think it's fair as we kind of get to this situation just to see who we feel good about, who we feel is at risk, who's a bubble team. I think anybody Chipley and above is going to be safe, so I'm okay with Osceola, Chipley, Madison, Cottondale. I'd say they've basically clinched. Of course, there's no automatic bids here in rural ball, but with the poor differential and how it's worked out, I would feel confident that they would be in. Teams I feel good about, but not as certain, just with the way the points go. I think Blountstown and Lafayette are in, and then you look at your bubble teams. So anybody kind of below that 11 seed, I phrase as a bubble team. That 12 to 6 or 12 to really 20 is really kind of fluid. So I think Holmes would be a bubble team. They're at risk. I think Franklin's a bubble team. They're at risk. Over on the other side of the bubble, currently outside looking in right now, Port St. Joe, Jefferson County, those are bubble teams that have a chance to be jumping in here in rural ball. So that's what we have here for rural. Let's skip on and get to your 1A bracket. Let's pop up the chart first. As you can see, couple changes here in 1A ball. Of course, exciting news for one of our area teams, Maclay, jumping up to 2. Providence will stay at 1. St. John Paul II, they're up to 4. Look out. And then, of course, you have University Christian, as predicted. If you saw us early last week, making a big jump here to 5. They've really closed the gap. Of course, scrolling on down, Trinity Christian at 3. Impact here at 6, and then a bid steal. Trinity Catholic came into the week, of course, at the number 9 seed. They upset PK Young for the district, so Trinity has the automatic bid. If you can see the DC there, those are district champion automatic bids. So fast forwarding to the bracket, it would be Providence, Trinity Catholic. This is funny because it would be a 1-8 matchup. But because it's a district champ against a non-district champ, Trinity Catholic would host Providence, despite having the number 1 seed currently, if the numbers hold. Of course, we've still got 2 more weekends of ball to get through before that. Also, you look at Maclay, now hosting PK Young. You feel good about their hosting chances. Of course, with the victory, big victory against Deerfield Windsor really helped them out, helping cement potentially, as long as University Christian doesn't drop into the 7 if Maclay's 2 or the 6 if Maclay is 3. Of course, other matchups involving our team, St. John Paul II, if it started today, would host University Christian. So both of our teams at the top going to be good to go. Over on the flip side, with the Trinity Catholic win, I think NFC can officially close the door on them. I would consider them eliminated, though mathematically it's still potential that they could get in. I give it a less than 2% chance. But of course, they've got no more games left, so they can't make any jumps. So it's about PK Young would have to fall, Episcopal would have to fall, and they would each have to fall around the area of 7, 8, 9 points, with NFC not jumping up any. So it's all on them to be falling, NFC not really going to do much jumping. Also, FAMU DRS, I think they are out based also on the points. Same rationale here for NFC. So that's your 1A picture. Teams in trouble, I think it's pretty clear. St. John Paul II, obviously in. Maclay, they're going to be in. It looks like with the points. It's mainly hosting. Will they host, will they not? NFC, FAMU DRS on the outside looking in here for our area teams. Let's fast forward, get into 2A as we bring up that picture here in the brackets. And some excitement here. You see some question marks, and because of the rescheduled district game, Gadsden County will play Taylor County. Official announcement yesterday. Shout out to Gadsden County for putting that up. It's going to be a Monday game, November 4th. So, if Gadsden wins, they lock up the district, they get the automatic bid. If Taylor County wins, it forces a 3-way tiebreaker, and so then it would go to the points. Whoever has the highest points would be the automatic bid and would potentially probably host based on how these are getting flushed out. So basically this district with Taylor, Florida High, Gadsden is going to hold the region a little bit hostage to see until we get to those playoff points after that 11-7 makeup game, that Thursday that we're still going to get results in. So big question marks here. Having said that, we do know the 3 automatic bids here in 2A. That's going to be Bowles, Pensacola Catholic, Mariana. You see them at 2, 3, 4. That's simple. So as we look at the chart here, some ebbs and some flows. Fringe teams on the outside looking in. It looks like Bozeman, Freeport, South Walton. But I think these all have a chance to get in. Baldwin has been eliminated from the district competition, so they cannot get an automatic bid. So I think Baldwin's the team that these would have to jump. I think my favorite of the mix would be that 9-seed Bozeman to get in. They would have to finish strong and have Baldwin fall in order to get through and try to steal that 8th seed. I think it would be tough for the other teams given the amount of makeup, but with the numbers still here, if you finish the season strong, I think it's good to go. But all of these teams have one game left here on the schedule to finish things up. Of course, other area teams in consideration. Of course, Rutherford looks like they're on the outside looking in. North Bayhaven also looks like they're on the outside looking in. So if we look at the bracket matchups today, Gadsden and Baldwin. So that one, if we went to the tiebreaker, it looks like Gadsden would be hosting that match. Then we go to the 2-7. It'd be Pensacola Catholic hosting Walton. Then it would be our team, Taylor County, on the road against Bowles. And then Florida High on the road against Mariana. With 2 of our area teams would be a really fun contest with some fun quarterbacks and some rushing games that'll really get you excited. So that would be fun to watch here in 2A. So let's go on to the 3A situation that we have here. Once again, we have a district and some question marks coming here for the automatic bids. Things have not been locked up yet. Of course, Rains and Godby, they've locked up the district, as had Bay. So you can see the chart. You have some question marks at your 4, 6, and 10 position. So Parker could still theoretically, of course, go through. These teams have tied. So we talked about how there's the potential with the Taylor, Florida High, Gadsden district down in 2A. These teams are gridlocked. So whoever is the highest in the points when it comes to Bishop Kenny, Menendez, and Parker, that will be the district champion. And if they are ranked ahead of another team, they would host because they would be the de facto champion. And that team would be guaranteed. So right now, I think the favorite is Bishop Kenny. They've been on top for the majority of the situation here in this region. So I would assume if that carries out, that they would be able to push forward and lock up that district as they have, at least in the points, so far for the last 2-3 weeks. So a little bit of a shift here. Wakulla and Baker flip-flop after Wakulla takes down Baker on the road. So Wakulla really rolling right now. They've got a chance to lock in a home game here in the postseason, which would be wild because they did not win the district. Then going forward down, Swanee still holding strong in that 7. I think Swanee is in. I think they've done enough. They'll have an opportunity versus Wakulla to really cement their playoff position. And how crazy would it be if Wakulla could jump up to that 4 seed and maybe steal a home game from these top 4 teams? But Swanee on an absolute tear the last 3-4 weeks. They're healthy, And don't bet against the Bulldogs right now. They are rolling. Also, Bay, they are flying in under the radar here, the district champ, so they're going to be in regardless. It's mainly going to be about seed. So, we'll flip over to the bracket. Reigns would host our area team Bay. Despite winning the district, you're not guaranteed a home game. So it looks like they will be on the road unless they face a team like Wakulla or another team that did not win their district. Of course, Gabi would be hosting Suwannee if it started today. Rematch of the game played at Childs High School earlier in the year. Wakulla, if results hold, they would actually get a home game and host Menendez. So they still got that game against Suwannee on November 7th, like we talked about. So potential for them. Baker County, if playoffs started today, would be at the road at would-be champion Bishop Kenny to match that up. So not a far trek there from Glen Mary on over to the Jacksonville area. If I had to put a prediction on it, obviously Gabi's in, obviously Bay's in. Our other area 2 teams, Suwannee and Wakulla, I think pretty good chances to get in. I would give them Wakulla, I feel really good about. Wakulla, I'd probably give an 80% chance. Suwannee, I'd probably give about a 65% chance. But of course, still an opportunity to lock in a game or two for each of those squads. And you have an opportunity to slide on in here to the picture. But I think there's a very good possibility, as we have it now, that all 4 of our area teams get into 3A. So let's go down to the 4A picture, jump along for you here. Of course, the top dogs really keeping the charge here in 4A. District champions, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, but an upset special here. Ed White getting the jump. They're the automatic bid, and they're now causing some problems. So what this does, Rickards is at risk of dropping below the line. Columbia coming on strong. Fort Walton Beach in the conversation. So it's really tough. Rickards, you look at it a couple weeks ago, you would have probably given them a 65% chance, 70% chance to get into the playoffs. Right now, I think you're 50-50, and it's going to be tough because right now Columbia is nipping on your heels. They've got an extra game. If they go get it, there's a strong possibility with only a 0.8% gap between Columbia and Rickards, as you can see, with them dropping. So you go to the flip side. Hey, can Rickards get in? Even if can Rickards get in? Who are they playing? Lincoln. They're playing a really tough Lincoln Trojans team. So, bubble team, bona fide bubble team. It feels really good. If you're Rickards, you feel really good about if you win, you are in. But if you lose, you are in a really tough situation. And there's even a scenario, as it plays out, that Rickards and Columbia could both lose and that Columbia gets in. That's not a very likely situation, and you want to keep an eye on that. But I think the Rickards' strength of schedule will get bolstered. But if they fall to 4-6, the metrics do not like teams under 500 here this season, which has been a little bit of a change from the FHSA points in the past. So I think Rickards is definitely at risk. Arnold, to a certain extent, also at risk here. You know, they, of course, have finished up their season 7-3, so they got a good winning percentage here, but their strength of schedule is not hot, so they are still vulnerable. They, if playoffs started today, would be on the road. As we transition to the brackets, they would be on the road at Pine Forest. Rickards would be on the road against a really tough St. Augustine team. But you can see it there. For our 2 area teams, man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be real tough. Rickards is going to need some help because there's a couple area teams chomping at their heels. But luckily for them, everybody's on 9 games. And so they're only going to have 1 more game to kind of push through and make that impact here. So at least it's not like you have Columbia with 2 games left. If that was the case, I would probably project Columbia in. But if I had to guess today, I think Rickards is in, but it is razor-thin margins by the skin of their teeth. But I'm hoping our boys get into the playoffs so we can go 2 for 2 here in Region 4. Transitioning on, let's wrap it up here with our final classification in our coverage range here with 5A. So, of course, as we have predicted last week, the metrics played out. The strength of schedule is leveling out here once teams are completing their schedule. Of course, Niceville falling to the 2, Mosley jumping them with the 1. So, as predicted, we knew that strength of schedule would be coming down here for Niceville. It was a little inflated because they hadn't played Navarre or Milton, which both, I think, had a combined record of about 3-13. So, they will once again be playing a team with a losing record this week, and so once again, their strength of schedule will come down after that game is played. Having said that, I think Lincoln a real chance if they beat Rickards this weekend. Granted, their strength of schedule would come down, but an 8-2 Lincoln, definitely an opportunity to jump a 9-1 Niceville. They're only 0.3 points apart right now. Of course, Lincoln could jump in to get that 2 seed, which would be big because they would be hosting all the way up until if they face Mosley. If Mosley gets knocked out, Lincoln could host all the way through the Final Four, which would be huge because they've really locked down the gene this year. Of course, you think about their defeats. Yeah, they're really tough. Gadsden, I mean, brutal, right? And then on the road, Niceville, you had them score with 40 seconds left after you fought all the way back. So I think Lincoln has proved its merit and would definitely be an admirable force at home. But obviously, they've locked up the automatic bid. Mosley's locked up the automatic bid. Our other two teams, Childs is creeping into the picture here with one left. Childs actually has a chance. So you might have buried them 3-4 weeks ago, but Childs is climbing back in, and they're going to make it very interesting. They're putting the pressure on Middleburg right now as a bubble team. I think Leon's on the outside looking in, but Childs a legit opportunity if they can get win number 4 to pop up here and creep a little closer. They could steal one here late. So I think it's a borderline. I think maybe 35% chance if I was going to put a metric on it for Childs. Lincoln, obviously 100%. Leon's looking like it'd be really difficult. I put them at less than 1% chance, but that's your Region 5A, of course, with Mosley with the automatic bid. But watch out for Lincoln to slide into that 2 seed. Only 0.3 and change back here from Niceville. So we look at the playoff picture. We've got a couple bid steals. We've got a couple bubble teams. We still have some districts to be decided, which is crazy because district games are supposed to be over. We're supposed to have this in the book. But that's part of the fun of high school ball. So much still to change, so much still to come here. A lot of excitement going on around it. So be tuned to keep it with us here at the North Florida Prep Report and the I-10 Sports Media Network. I'm Andrew Jute. Thanks for coming in today. Hey, and if you want a little playoff feature, your team we talked about maybe in passing, you want an in-depth dive, let us know in those comments. Throw it down in there. We'll do a deep dive of your squad, let you know what we think based on how the metrics have been tracking the last month plus to see if they've got a shot at getting in, hosting it, and what that could mean for them potentially marching on to the Final Four and maybe even farther to continuing the drive in the FHSA to December.